Hello everyone and welcome to the Professional Diploma in Photoshop. Welcome to Module 1, Lesson number 1 of this Professional Diploma in Photoshop. Before we go any further, I just want to say a massive thank you to all of you for choosing to study with Shaw Academy. I hope that you're all really excited about embarking on this course and learning absolutely everything that you've ever wanted to know about Adobe Photoshop. Did you know that Hello everyone and welcome to the Professional Diploma in Photoshop. Welcome to Module 1, Lesson number 1 of this Professional Diploma in Photoshop. Before we go any further, I just want to say a massive thank you to all of you for choosing to study with Shaw Academy. I hope that you're all really excited about embarking on this course and learning absolutely everything that you've ever wanted to know about Adobe Photoshop. Did you know that Photoshop was first developed in 1987 by the American brothers Thomas, who's shown here, and John Knoll, who then sold the distribution license to Adobe Systems Incorporated in 1988. And it was originally conceived as a subset of Adobe Illustrator, which had been developed the year before in 1987, but quickly grew to be the most popular way to edit images and to edit photographs. And indeed, Photoshop is synonymous with photographic and image editing, and it is used in conjunction with a huge number of other softwares, as we're going to see as we continue on throughout this course. My name is William Eames. I am your course tutor. I also teach the Professional Diploma in Photography as well. Some of you may be familiar with me from that course. I also teach a course in Lightroom here with Shaw Academy 2, which is the primary way that I would edit my photographs, but I'm also adept in Photoshop and indeed have skills in InDesign and Illustrator, all of which we will be mentioning briefly as we continue on throughout this course. Now, before we go any further, I just want to say to all of you that success requires effort and commitment, and we're here to make things as easy as possible for you to attend your lessons and succeed. All you have to do is don't drop out, and you will achieve your goals. You'll see an improvement in every single lesson that you attend. Now, we've just got a little bit of housekeeping to get through just before we dive into this lesson. First of all, if you haven't downloaded it already, I strongly recommend that you download the app available on the App Store and indeed on the Play Store as well. Makes it very, very easy to watch your lessons pretty much anywhere on the go, whatever time suits you. It's possible there to watch recordings as well, so if you miss a lesson, you can always catch up through the recordings too, and there's loads of extras there as well to explore through the app. You can also attend in a more traditional way. Simply visit shawacademy.com, log in there with your email and with your password. You can go through to your course page. You'll be able to join a class at your scheduled time, or indeed, if you need to catch up on a recording, it is possible to do that through our website as well. You can also reschedule your class time to choose a time that suits you better if you're struggling to attend the lessons, and you can also add the calendar to ensure that you never miss a class. But as I mentioned, it is always possible to go back and watch recordings as well. As we know, life gets in the way. It can be difficult to attend your classes at your scheduled time. Now, our courses are interactive, so throughout the lessons I will be asking you plenty of questions, and I'm sure you're going to have lots of questions yourself. So you can chat with Morpheus. So you can type in to Morpheus. You'll find them in your lower right hand corner of your screens. And basically, Morpheus will answer any questions that you have, but if Morpheus doesn't get it right, it is also possible to chat with the classroom as well. Do remember to rate the responses that you get from Morpheus so we can continually improve the quality of the feedback that you get. And you can always reach out to us at support@shawacademy.com if you have any outstanding questions. Now, let's put Morpheus to the test. So, answer me this. What do you think Photoshop is for? So Photoshop, it's a program that's synonymous with image editing, but I want you to think really, what is its purpose? And I mean, there's no right or there's no wrong answer here, but I want you to just start thinking about, I suppose, really what you want to use Photoshop before. And for me, Photoshop is a way of creating images that you could only ever imagine in your dreams. It's about being able to take our ideas and create them in this digital space, as we're going to see throughout this course. So let's have a look at what's coming up throughout this course. First of all, of course, lesson number 1, we're going to get set up with Photoshop. We're going to have a look at the interface. We're also going to dive straight in and start doing some work within Photoshop. Lesson number 2, all about adjustments. We're going to have a look at how we can edit our photographs and indeed any other type of image through Photoshop. Lesson number 3, we'll introduce layers and masks. This is a trickier subject, but a very important one, as it really is going to unlock the power of Photoshop, and it'll set you up for the rest of the course. If you can master layers and masks, you're going to be able to unlock the power of Photoshop and pretty much create near infinite ideas. Lesson number 4, we're going to talk selections. So we're going to have a look at how to cut, move and create. Adding on to our selections then, in lesson number 5, we'll have a look at creating composites. So this will combine everything we've learned up to that stage with our selections, with our layers, with our adjustments to create these unreal looking images from multiple different sources. But away from that then, in lesson number 6, we'll have a look at how to do retouching to photographs, and this is going to cover things like removing objects, doing a little bit of skin retouching, and we'll have a look at how to do this in a way that's also respectful to your subject and isn't overdone. Lesson number 7, we'll have a look at how to edit colour and how to create stunning black and white photographs as well. And lesson number 8, we'll dig into all the really cool effects that you can add within Photoshop too, like this dispersion effect that you can see here in the background. Now, you're probably asking yourself at this stage, what version of Photoshop am I going to be using? Well, I'm going to be using the latest and greatest version of Photoshop. On all our courses, we always use the most up-to-date versions of the softwares. But everything that we teach, we try to cover across all the different variations that are out there. So if you happen to be using an older version of Photoshop, or even if you're using Photoshop Elements, you will still be able to follow along with the course. Just be aware there's certain things that you may find are unavailable to you, are limited to you. But as I mentioned, in general, everything that we covered throughout this course, you should be able to apply to your own version of Photoshop. Now, if you're not using Photoshop currently, you're wondering where you can get it. Well, it's very, very simple. You can get it from Adobe. Simply visit adobe.com, www.adobe.com. Photoshop is part of the Adobe Creative Cloud, which is a variety of different programs that are available for various aspects of image editing, video editing, 3D rendering, and so much more. But you can visit adobe.com, you can simply download and install Photoshop CC there. There is a 7-day trial available from Adobe too. It is a subscription service, so you would have to pay month to month or annually to use it, but it's definitely recommended that you at least download the trial. Now, for all of you attending this course, we do have something extra special as well. So complete this first lesson and you will receive an extended free trial from Adobe and Shaw Academy. So instead of getting just the 7-day free trial, you'll actually get the 30-day free trial from Adobe for completing this first lesson. And of course, that's plenty of time to try out Photoshop and follow along with the lessons. Just be sure to check your spam folders because the code comes from Adobe directly, and sometimes it may go into your trash or your spam folders. So be sure to check and keep that and keep an eye out from that email from Adobe to get your 30-day free trial and follow along with the course. So that's all of the housekeeping out of the way. So let me ask you another question. What type of Photoshopper are you? So I mentioned at the start, I asked you the question at the start, what do you think Photoshop is for? And as I suppose really a more apt question is, what type of Photoshopper are you? Now, don't answer it just yet. Let's have a look at the various uses of Photoshop, starting with photographers. So of course, photographers like myself use Photoshop, and the way you use Photoshop is very much going to be determined by what you need to get from Photoshop. So a photographer, for example, will be using Photoshop to do image adjustments, which we're going to have a look at in lesson 2, to make black and white adjustments, to enhance color, to do a little bit of retouching, to remove objects from photographs. So, you know, very often if you take a photograph, there might be something in the background like a car or something that just has to be taken out. So we use Photoshop for object removal. We can also create high dynamic range photographs and panoramic photographs through Photoshop. And we can do perspective adjustments, lens corrections to our images as well through Photoshop. Designers, of course, use Photoshop as well. Graphic designers, fashion designers, any type of design, you can do it through Photoshop too. So you're going to be using things like lines and shapes and colors, types, effects. All of these are elements of good design. Designers will be creating images from scratch through Photoshop. So again, if you can imagine it, you can create it through Photoshop. You may be manipulating photographs that already exist. So you might be taking a stock image and posterizing it, or doing some other type of editing to it. Or you might be a web designer sketching out a web page design through Photoshop. Marketers use Photoshop. More and more marketers are turning to this program to be able to get a better understanding of it, and also to expand their skill set. So if you're in marketing, using Photoshop is great for learning design, for making basic photo adjustments or doing page layouts. Of course, you might be doing a presentation, so you want to use that any data that you might be gathering and turn it into an infographic or turn it into a chart. Or something that I see here in the office very, very frequently is our marketers communicating with our web designers on how to design web pages and even making small edits themselves. Architects will use Photoshop. So if you're an interior architect or an exterior architect, you may find that you're frequently turning to the program to do things like spatial design, 3D design, perspective adjustments, doing photorealistic renders, or to change colors of objects. Again, very, very frequently you're going to be doing that, like if you need to change the color of, say, curtains, or change the color of a carpet. My wife is an architect and she very, very frequently uses Photoshop to do those types of manipulations. Or perhaps you're having to composite images together, so you're taking multiple photographs from multiple sources to create one final imagining of an interior space. Or perhaps simply you are an artist, you want to learn the program to be able to make anything that is in your imagination. Photoshop is near limitless. Anything that you can envision can likely be created in Photoshop, and it really is no exaggeration. But the key to creation is to learn the tools that are available to you, and that goes for any type of creative. If you're a photographer, you need to learn how to use your camera. You know, if you're an artist, a painter, you need to learn the different methods of painting. You need to know the different types of brushes that you're using. And if you want to get creative within Photoshop, you need to understand all the tools that are available to you. So let me know, what type of Photoshopper are you? Simply type into Morpheus the number of the one that you think best suits you. Now, of course, this is only 5 choices from a huge range of variations that are available when it comes to Photoshop. Perhaps you are a photographer and a graphic designer. Perhaps you're a photographer and an architect. You know, there's lots and lots of different combinations that we can have here. But try to select the one that you think is the broadest one that you would fall underneath. The reason that I ask you this question is to get you thinking about how you're going to use Photoshop. And that leads on into our Photoshop workspaces. So there's lots of different workspaces within Photoshop depending on what your needs are. And when it comes to workspaces, there's loads of tools available to us, but you're not going to be using every single tool that's within Photoshop. It's really going to come down to what your own specific needs are. So, for example, a graphic designer, we've got our shape tools, our elliptical tools, our kind of more unique shape tools. A photographer is more likely to be using our cloning and healing tools to remove objects and to repair images. Our painters are going to be using our brush tools, our smudge tools, the different types of tools that are available to us to get these kind of more painterly effects. Our 3D artists are going to be sampling images and are going to be using paint bucket tools to fill in large areas of color. So all of these tools that are available to us, you're not going to be using every single one of them, but we are going to be covering them all so that you get a good sense of what tools to use and what ones not to use as well. Now, there's also lots and lots of shortcuts available within Photoshop to speed up your workflow. Again, these you're going to learn all in due time. And of course, we'll be covering them as we're using them within the program itself. But you can also just hover over the toolbar when you're in Photoshop, and it will also tell you what the shortcut is. Obviously, there's going to be slight variations, again, depending on the version of the software you're using. And if you're using a Mac or Windows, again, you might get some slight variations as well. But Photoshop will also tell you, and you'll also find a list of shortcuts within your toolkits as well. Tools will fall under, I suppose, 4 primary categories. We have our kind of our repair tools, our healing tools, including the spot healing brush. We've got our selection tools for selecting parts of the photographs. Again, we'll have a look at these in depth in lesson 4. We've got our brush tools, and then we have other tools as well. And again, all of these we're going to cover in due time. But enough talking, and let's get into Photoshop, and let's just dive right in and start creating within the program itself. So this is our Photoshop interface. Okay, so if you're familiar with any other Adobe programs, the Photoshop interface basically acts as a template for Adobe programs right across the board, in the sense that it's divided really into 4 different sections. Okay, so over on the left hand side here we have our toolbar. Here we can select the various tools. We'll come back to this in a moment. In the middle section here we have our document viewer. This is where we can view our images, our photographs. Over here on the right hand side is where we've got many different options here, things like our layers, our adjustments, if we want to add any adjustments quickly to our photographs, our color swatches and so on. And across the top here then we have our menu bar. So here we can open up files, we can also do a little bit of editing here as well through the menu, image, change the image sizes, lots and lots of other options here that we'll all explore within due time. The very first thing that we should do when we come into Photoshop is have a look at this window option. So I've spoken about workspaces. You want to make sure that your workspace is correctly set first of all. And we want to start with Essentials. So we go to Window, Workspace, Essentials, and we click dust that one off, and we click Default, which is already selected. But there is other workspaces there as well. As you can see, we've got our 3D, we've got our graphic and web, and when we click these off, you can see the panels over here on the right hand side change. Our toolbar remains constant. It always stays the same. That will never change when we change a workspace, but the right hand panels here will change. Let's go back to our workspace. We can toggle through each of these. Photography workspace here as well. Again, some changes here at the top. We can also expand out this as well. You can see these 2 little arrows. We've got actions, we've got history, loads of options here as well. We don't need to worry too much about these for now, but just be aware that if we click these little 2 arrows here, we can collapse icons or we can expand them out. So it just makes things a little bit tidier if we need them to be tidier. But for now, we'll come back up to our window. We go to our workspace and we go to Essentials, and we just simply click Default. So this is where I want everybody to be starting for now. Okay, so the best way to learn Photoshop is to learn by doing. So I think what is kind of universal, no matter what type of image discipline you happen to be in, we all need a business card. Okay, so if you're a photographer, graphic designer, web designer, architect, and marketer, whatever it happens to be, we all need a business card. So let's make a business card, and this will help us to get familiar with some of the very basic tools within Photoshop. So the first thing we need to do is to open up a document. Now we come up to File, and we've got a couple of options. Well, we've lots of options available here to us, and this is really what Photoshop is all about. Lots and lots of options. Okay, and that's a good thing. You know, having lots of options is important. It's just knowing what the correct option is. So we've got two options here we want to just concentrate on for now. We have New and we have Open. Okay, so New is going to create a brand new document. Open is going to open up an existing document. So if you want to work on a photograph, a previous vector, a design, PSD, whatever type of image file you may have previously been working on or had previously, you can open up through Open. So we go back to, we'll just select New for now because we want to create a brand new document. Click that off, and we're going to be met with an interface here that will give us lots of more options. As I said, options, options, options. Now we can go with recent options here, which are basically presets. Lots and lots of different presets here for us to begin with straight away. We've got saved here as well. If we had any previous documents or templates that we were working from previously, perhaps there's a certain type of template that you need to work on frequently, you can save it and you can open it up here. We've got preset options for photographs, for printing, for art and illustration, web, etc. Loads and loads and loads. Just infinite amount of options. We're going to come to recent. Okay, we'll go back to recent. This is essentially our starting point, and lots of presets here for us to begin with. So we're making a business card. A business card is going to be small. It doesn't need to be a large size document. We don't need an A4 document. We don't need a 7x5 inch document. So let's make a custom size document. Let's call this business first of all. BISINESS, business card. Okay, I recommend that you work within pixels. Okay, so pixels are the language of digital imagery. You can change this if you like. You can go with inches, centimeters, millimeters. Don't worry about points and picas for now. But pixels you should get familiar with using. They might be a little bit of an abstract concept right now, but they will make much more sense as we continue on throughout the course. So we can go with our pixel count here. We've also got a resolution of 300 pixels per inch. That means 300 pixels per every square inch of our photograph. If I was to change this to inches, we see we've got 7x5 inches with a resolution of 300. Divide 300 into 7 and you get 2100. Okay, and that's where our 2100 pixels comes from. Okay, so I'm going to change this, and I'm just going to select inches for now. We're going to go 3x2 inches. Okay, and we'll select, go back to pixels on that. That's 900 by 600 pixels. 3x2 inches is you know, it's a business card size. We can change it to portrait if we want, or landscape. We should probably go with landscape, as that's the typical aspect ratio for a business card. We've got color mode here. We don't need to worry about these for now. Lots of different options here again. RGB is going to be the one we're going to be using the majority of the time. CMYK we will also be using throughout the course, but we're going to stick with RGB, which is red, green and blue. We also just want to stick with 8 bits for now as well. So again, these might seem like kind of unusual terms, abstract concepts. They're going to make much more sense as we move on. We can also change the background if we want a white background, a black background, or perhaps we want to select our own background color. We're just going to leave things for white. So if we're happy with all of this for now, which we are, we're going to hit create. And there we go. We've got a blank document, a blank piece of paper that we can use to begin to create. So, where to start with a business card? What's the first thing we should include? Well, make it. I think when it comes to any type of design, you should really have a checklist of exactly what it is that you need to include. So, we think about a business card. You're going to need a bit of text. You're going to need your name. You're going to need some contact information. You definitely need to have some kind of background image or background color, and maybe you want to add a little bit more to it, some effects there as well, just to give some kind of indication as to the type of work that you do. So if you're a designer, graphic designer, you're going to want something graphical. If you're a photographer, you're going to want a photograph, etc. You just want to have images that quickly communicate exactly what it is you do. And when we talk about Photoshop and anything image related, imagery is a universal language, so the details are going to be important in terms of text and that, but your choice of image or your image creation is going to be key to communicating to whoever it is you're handing out this business card as to exactly the style of imagery or photography that you create. Okay, but we'll start off with some text. Okay, let's just start with the basics. So when we come over here to the left hand side, as I said before, this is where all of our tools are available to us. Now if we select any of these tools, so let's say we go to our type tool here, which is this letter T, I click on that, and you can see here it says horizontal type tool, and there's a great little description here, great little visual as to what that does. Now with any of these tools, if I right click or command click, I have variations available to me. So horizontal type tool, but I can also get a vertical type tool if I want to type vertically. We also have this masking tool available to us as well. Now masking is a little bit more complex. We'll come back to that in lesson number 3. But let's stick with our type tool for now. We'll go with the very basics, which is our horizontal type tool. Okay. So I'll select that, and what I need to do is come over to my document. You can see here the cursor has now changed a little bit. Up here at the top as well, just underneath my menu bar, I have some options available to me in terms of how I change the properties of the tool I have selected. This is important. So any tool that I select here, so if I select my heating brush, my normal brush, my clone stamp, you can see here the options underneath the menu bar change. I can change the properties of these tools by using the menu bar here. That's an important point to make. Okay, so for example, when I select my type tool, I can change the font, I can change the font type if I want it to be bold, if I want it to be italic, etc. I can change the font size, and so on. I can change the font color. Loads and loads of options available to me there. So let's just go with very basic. We click and we drag. You can see here it fills it in with our lorem ipsum. We're going to type in my name, William E-A-M-E-S. I always have to spell that one out to anybody who asks me my name. E-A-M-E-S, Eames. Okay, not a traditional name at all. Might be familiar if you're Dutch. I believe it is a Dutch name. Not that I'm Dutch. Maybe there is some Dutch somewhere in my family history. I'm not sure about that. But anyway, I digress. So William Eames Photography. We can change the size of that font. It's a little bit large. I'm going to change it down to 14. Maybe we'll change the color of it as well. So we can simply click off the color here. I like a kind of a nice gray. So we'll change that to some kind of gray there. But you can change it to whatever color you like. There we go. William Eames Photography. Very, very simple. Below that then, we might add in some more information. I'm going to make some smaller points. We'll just say phone, P-H-O-N-E, semicolon, or colon. And we'll just say 087 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. No way I'd be giving out my actual number here. Now, I might just make that even smaller again. So when it comes to design, do remember now it's probably an entirely different lesson. There are some principles and elements of design as well, in that, you always want some kind of header text, a header like this, When I say header, I mean a bold, kind of attention-grabbing font, and then you have your kind of details below that there as well. So I'm going to change the that to bold. Let's say we'll just call it bold there, just to make that stand out a little bit more. And you can see the design there is a little bit nicer. We can type in email. We'll just drag that out a bit. Email, and again xxx at shawacademy.com. Okay, so that's okay. Perhaps a little bit basic, but what you need to note here is that while we were making all of these changes, what's happened here, if I come over to the right hand side, is that in our layers panel we have a separate layer for this text. Okay, so what layers are, is the way to imagine them is if you are stacking pages on pages on pages on pages. Another way to look at it is if you've got a burger. So imagine you're eating a burger, you've got your bun at the bottom, you put your patty in the center, whether it's meat, whether it's vegetarian, whether it's a vegan patty. You put your tomato, onions, pickles, cheese, lettuce, whatever it is you want on top of that, with a bit of sauce, bit of mayonnaise, bit of ketchup, again, whatever you want, and you top it off with your bun at the top. That's the way layers work. It's the exact same idea. You're stacking things upon each other, and you can choose whether or not to leave them in or to take them out. And we can take them out very easily by clicking off the visibility here. So those little eye symbols that are beside each of our layers are the visibility. So you can quickly click them on and off. And what this means is that we can actually build layers upon layers upon layers upon layers, keep going, and choose whether or not we want to visualize them or not. So this means you can try lots of different ideas out on a single document without having to create multiple documents, because you can just keep adding more and more layers. But we will come back to layers in lesson number 3. Okay, so that's fine for me to begin with, but it's very boring, it's very dull. We need to add more to this. So I think what I want to do here is I'd like to add in a photograph. So let's add in a picture. So if I come to File, and I come to Open instead. So we're going to open up a photograph here that already exists. We want to try and find a photograph that's appropriate for us in this instance. Now, obviously, when you click Open here, you can choose wherever you want to open up a photograph from. Luckily, it just defaults for me into this conveniently named folder named Photoshop Lessons. We just need to find an appropriate image. So I'm a photographer. I want to choose an image that kind of expresses and shows my photography skills. Now, these are just stock images that we're using for now. I quite like this one. You know, I think that's a nice photograph. So let's open that. And it opens up as a separate document. So now I've got 2 different documents. I have this one here, my business card template, and I have this other image here called face. So how do I get this image to this? Okay. So how do I do that? Well, it's really, really simple, thankfully. So this option here at the top, this is, I presume, what I would call our default option. So anytime you make any changes to anything within Photoshop, you should always try to remember to just default back to our Move tool. Okay, so the Move tool is exactly what it sounds. It moves objects, it moves images around. So if I click my Move tool and I click on this photograph, I can actually move it. Now you can see here it's locked. The background, the layer here is a background layer, so you can't actually modify it. You can't make any changes to it. And that's because we have this little lock icon on the layer. So we want to convert this to a normal layer. And when we convert it to a normal layer, it unlocks it. And as you can see, it moves I can now move the image around. A very important point, as you can see, you've got this checkered grey and white background here. That means it's transparent. Transparent means there's nothing there. It's see-through. There's nothing there at all. Okay, so that's something we're going to see a lot throughout the course. But for now, as you can see, I can move it around. That's great, but how do I move it from here to there? Well, that's really easy. All you have to do is click and drag. So click on the image, I drag it up to the top tab here and I drop it down. Okay, that's great, but it's in front of it. It's too large as well, and I can't see any of the changes, the text or anything like that. So that's no good for me right now. I need to make some changes here. If I come back to my layers, so here we now see we've got a third layer now attached. I can switch that on and off, but it's over my text. It's over the background. So how can I change that? Well, again, just click and drag. Click and drag is something you're going to do very, very frequently through Photoshop. So when I click it and I hold down the click, I can drag it to wherever I like. So I'm going to drag it below my text. So if I drop it there, now you can see the text has appeared on top of it. Okay, so again, if you think back to our burger analogy, maybe I want my lettuce below my beef patty or below my vegetarian patty. So I take out the lettuce and I slide it in underneath the beef or the vegetarian patty, and there you go. That's the exact same idea when we're working on layers within Photoshop. However, you can see here it's difficult to see the text because of the colors of this image. It's also, the image is still too large. So what can I do about that? Well, let's see. We're going to select, we need to make sure we have the right layer selected. So when you're moving through layers, as you can see, when I click on each of them, it highlights a different layer. So make sure you've got the right layer selected first of all. When I click on the layer and I have the right one selected, I want to come up to this option called Edit and this one called Transform. Okay, we've also got Free Transform here as well. We'll actually select that Free Transform option. And the Free Transform option will allow us to change the size of the image simply by clicking and dragging. Okay, so I can move it, I can click on the edges of it here as well, and I can size it to fit my frame. Okay, so the Transform option. Again, we'll come back to this one much more in detail in a future lesson, but again, just quickly, all we need to do is go to Edit and click Free Transform. Control T or Command T is our option there. So I'm happy with that. I click Enter. That will apply that change for me. However, it's still difficult to see the text. So what I can do here is I have two options. I can change the color of the text. I could change it to white. I could change it to red. I could change it to something that's going to stand out a little bit more against this background. But I quite like that text color. I don't want to change that. So I can change this layer. So when I have this layer selected, we have some options available to us within this layer. We've got opacity. We've got fill. There's other options here as well when we click down the drop down box, and as you can see there, you can cycle through them when you get some pretty funky options there. We're going to leave it on normal, and all we want to do is change the opacity. So opacity makes the image more opaque, makes it more see-through. So I'm going to reduce that down to about 70%. You can see it just gives this nice matte effect on the image, and it makes the text a little bit easier there to read. Okay, so there's a very, very, very quick business card that we have now created with a little bit of text, a little bit of imagery, and a little bit of manipulation to that imagery via the opacity slider there. Okay, so that was very, very quick. What I recommend is that you go over this in the recording, so shawacademy.com, view back the recordings here and take this step by step. Now, just a final step here as well is, because I'm going to want you to do this as your lesson challenge, you're obviously going to need to know how to save your progress. So when we're working with multiple layers, we have a few options. If we go to File and we go to Save or Save As, we can choose to save our file. Now, when we've used more than one layer, you're going to want to save it as a PSD, which is a Photoshop document. However, if you feel that you've finished working on your image, you can go and select the JPEG option. JPEG is a universal format. It's designed to be opened up within any image browser or uploaded onto websites or anything like that, social media, etc. So we're going to select our JPEG option. We can choose to sit where we want to save it. We're going to save it as a business card within our Photoshop lessons. That's absolutely fine. We don't need to worry about any of that other stuff now. We just click save. And as you can see, it flattens the image. So the first thing to be aware of here is you're going to lose your layers. And this is why saving as a JPEG should be the absolute final step that you take. When you feel that you've fully completed your image, you should save it as a JPEG. It's also recommended that you just save it as a copy anyway. So you should always have a PSD file or spare files, separate files, whatever document it is that you're working on. But if you want to share an image or you're planning on putting it online, etc., you can save it as a JPEG. So we're happy with all of these options here. We don't need to worry about any of them. We just simply click progressive. We're going in with max quality. That's fine. And we click OK. And that's it. It's going to save it. That's it. It's done. Okay. So save or save as and save it as a JPEG. So with that, let's go back to our slideshow and let's just finish out this lesson. So well done on completing lesson number 1. Let's have a quick look at what's coming up in lesson 2. So we're going to be having a look at how to do our adjustments. We're going to have a look at basic photo adjustments. What are the first adjustments that you should make to a photo or image? We'll have a look at how to control the levels, the overall brightness in our images, how to make color adjustments to a photograph, and many more improvements to our shots. And then we'll also have a look at how to add a bit of sharpening to get our photographs nice and crisp, and how to crop and select the right format, the right shape for your photographs. As I said, your lesson challenge is to create a business card, and please do share it with us, facebook.com/Shaw Academy. We'd love to see what you come up with. As I said, it's a great way to get familiar with some of the basic tools within Photoshop. And let's face it, business cards are very, very useful as well. You never know, you might actually get a bit of work from it too. You can also email them over to us at support@shawacademy.com if you've got any questions after this lesson as well. Now, as I said at the start of the lesson, the key to success is to attend all the lessons. Don't drop out. And you are going to see differences on every single lesson. Every single lesson you attend is going to add another skill that you can use within Photoshop and achieve your goals. So that's it. Thank you so much for joining me for this lesson. We'll leave it there, and I'll see you all back here again very, very soon for lesson number 2. So until then, take care of yourselves, and bye-bye.